Just because you're a superstar in the NFL doesn't guarantee you a spot on a team.
The chances are that he will wind up being released this offseason.
The NFL salary cap does not allow teams to keep all their core players together. So with that said, here are big-named NFL players who are likely going to get cut this offseason. Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos made it clear back in Week 17 that they no longer viewed Wilson as the answer at quarterback. Wilson was benched in the final 2 games of 2023 because of his refusal to adjust the injury guarantees in his contract.
We beat the Chiefs. They came up to me during the bye week, and they told me that if I didn't change my contract, my injury guarantee, that I'd be benched for the rest of the year.
If Denver kept Wilson, they would owe him $39 million in guarantees for 2024, plus $37 million in injury guarantees for 2025. Simply put, the risk ain't worth it. Releasing Wilson would cost the Broncos $85 million in dead money over the next 2 years, but I think they seem comfortable going that route. Clearly, Sean Payton is not sold on Wilson, and he would rather just handpick his next QB. Wilson did show tremendous improvement under Payton after a miserable first year with Nathaniel Hackett in 2022. But if the new head coach isn't confident in you, then what can you do? Wilson is on his way out of Denver, but there promises to be a market for the 9-time Pro Bowler who can still play at a pretty quality level. Keenan Allen. There's a case to be made that the Los Angeles Chargers should run it back with their current core with Jim Harbaugh now in the fold. But why should the Bolts' new regime keep together an aging, expensive, and constantly underachieving core that hasn't won anything yet? Well, that's going to bring us now to star wide receiver Keenan Allen. Releasing the 6-time Pro Bowler saves LA a whopping $23 million in cap space. Given his injury history and the fact that he'll be 32 years of age next season, cutting Allen feels like a rather easy call here. Allen's number 13 will be retired in SoFi Stadium someday, but the Bolts should decide to go younger at wideout and use their precious cap dollars on other roster needs. Mike Williams. Staying on the topic of Chargers star wideouts, like Allen, Williams has struggled to stay healthy throughout his career, and though he's widely viewed as the Chargers' #1 receiver, Williams has never been a Pro Bowler, and he's only hit 1,000 yards receiving twice. The Bolts would save $20 million in cap space if they cut Williams, so it's unlikely that the Chargers could cut both Williams and Allen, but hey, one of them has to go in a cap-saving move. If the front office chooses Allen, then Williams will most certainly be shown the door. Joe Mixon. Many thought that the Cincinnati Bengals would cut Mixon last year, but he wound up returning and repaid them with his 4th career 1,000-yard season. But the Bengals were up against the cap this year and need to pay superstar wideout T. Higgins. Cutting Mixon would save $6.1 million in cap space, and the Bengals know just how easy it is to find a quality running back at a bargain price. With other roster holes that must be addressed, it just makes sense for Cincinnati to cut Mixon and save up every penny that they can at a more important position. Khil Mack. Don't blame us for putting another Charger on the list. We're not the ones who assembled such a pricey and aging roster that has put the Bolts in a cap bind. Mack posted a career-high 17 sacks in 2023, but keep in mind that 6 of those came in one game against the Las Vegas Raiders. And as great as Mack was in 2023, the Bolts would be foolish to bank on a 33-year-old performing at that kind of level again. If the Chargers release Mack, they will clear a mammoth $23.25 million in cap space. Doing so would allow them to find younger and cheaper replacements to shore up the other holes on that defense. Remember, the new Bolts regime wasn't here when the team acquired Mack in a 2022 trade with the Chicago Bears. So don't be shocked if they decide to cut the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year and rebuild the defense with their vision. Hunter Renfro. After a career year in 2021, the crafty slot receiver signed a 2-year contract extension with the Las Vegas Raiders worth $32 million. It felt like a win-win of a deal at the time. Renfro had set career highs across the board with 103 receptions for 1,038 yards and 9 touchdowns. But unfortunately, Renfro's production decreased right after Josh McDaniels arrived as the new head coach. Over the next 2 seasons combined, Renfro had a combined 61 receptions for 585 yards and 2 touchdowns. Clearly, the honeymoon phase is over between Renfro and the Raiders. Cutting Renfro this offseason would save Las Vegas $8.21 million in cap space. Unless Renfro were to agree to a restructured deal at a massive discount, it's likely that he'll find himself playing elsewhere next year. CJ Mosley. Mosley has been the heart and soul of the New York Jets defense since arriving in 2019. His on-field production is not the reason why he's on this list, but rather the money that the Jets could save by cutting the former Pro Bowler. If the Jets cut Mosley before June 1st, they'd clear up $11 million in cap space ahead of free agency. A post-June 1st cut would save them even more, a grand total of $17 million. The Jets have to rebuild their atrocious offensive line and bring in new weapons to help Aaron Rodgers. As good as Mosley is, there's a case to be made that the Jets need to sacrifice a little bit on defense to further bolster the offense around their franchise QB. Kevin Byard. Ahead of the 2023 trade deadline, the banged-up Philadelphia Eagles acquired Pro Bowl safety Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans in exchange for Terrell Edmonds plus 2024 5th and 6th round picks. The two-time Pro Bowler struggled to find his footing following the trade. The renowned ball hawker had 1 interception and only 3 pass defenses in 10 game appearances. By cutting Byard, the Eagles would save $13 million in cap space. We know it was essentially only a half-a-season audition, but Byard's lackluster play with the Eagles gives Howie Roseman good reason to cut his losses here and spend that money somewhere else. But given the Eagles' lack of depth in the secondary, there is also a good possibility that the Eagles would just offer to bring him back at a discounted price. And if Byard wants to ring chase, then heck, why not Philly? Michael Thomas. It's quite surprising that the New Orleans Saints have held on to Thomas for this long. Surely, this has to be the end of the line, right? The Saints brought Thomas back on a restructured deal in 2023, hoping that he'd stay healthy and form chemistry with Derek Carr. But Thomas missed 7 games and finished with only 39 receptions for 448 yards and 1 touchdown. Remember, Thomas missed all but 7 games in 2020, plus the entire 2021 season, and he was limited to 3 games during the 2022 campaign. At what point did the cap-strapped Saints realize that he's not able to stay healthy anymore and that his all-pro days are well past him? Cutting Thomas post-June 1st would save New Orleans $1.21 million against the cap. Sure, it's not much, but every dollar matters for a team that's in massive cap trouble every single year. Jamal Adams. Adams was a beast in his first season with the Seattle Seahawks, racking up 9.5 sacks in just 12 games during the 2020 campaign. That mark, by the way, remains a single-season sacks record for a defensive back. But injuries and poor production have made the Adams trade a bit of a failure for Seattle post-2020. He played in just 22 total games over the past 3 years, failing to record a single sack while getting lit up like a Christmas tree time and time again in coverage. Adams' struggles have been a key reason as to why Seattle keeps turning out one of the worst defenses in all of football. As such, it would be a massive surprise if he actually wound up staying in the Pacific Northwest in 2024. If they release Adams post-June 1st, Seattle would save $17.122 million against the cap, while taking on just under $9.8 million in dead money. Given the amount of defensive back depth in both free agency and the 2024 NFL Draft, Seattle likely won't have any issue releasing Adams and finding better options at a much better price. Michael Gallup. In a bit of a head-scratcher move, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones chose Gallup over Amari Cooper, trading the latter to the Cleveland Browns in the 2022 offseason. As for Gallup, he was curiously awarded a 5-year extension worth $62.5 million. Sure enough, Cooper is still putting up Pro Bowl numbers in Cleveland, while Gallup continues to carry a burdensome contract. The oft-injured Gallup has been held to under 40 receptions and less than 500 yards receiving in each of the last 3 years now. By cutting Gallup post-June 1st, the always cap-strapped Cowboys would clear $9.5 million in salary cap space. With Brandon Cooks arriving and taking over as the new number 2 receiver behind CeeDee Lamb, Gallup's release simply feels inevitable here. David Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari was among football's best offensive tackles during his healthy days. Unfortunately, the former Pro Bowler just hasn't been able to stay on the field over the last 4 years. Bakhtiari suffered a torn ACL late in the 2020 season and missed all but 1 game in 2021. He missed 6 games in 2022 and again suited up for just a single contest in 2023. Bakhtiari is going to be 33 years of age next season, and the Green Bay Packers already have a quality offensive line in front of Jordan Love. Keeping Bakhtiari's $40 million cap number just isn't an option, and releasing him would save just a hair under $21 million in cap space. Yeah, there is no guarantees in football, but I think that Bakhtiari's release from Green Bay is pretty dang close. Tre'Davious White. It is extremely unfortunate how much the injury bug has derailed White's last few years. Before injuries piled up, he was often in the conversation for a top 5 corner in the game. White has been limited to 21 total games dating back to the 2021 season. Despite his frequent absences, Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills continue to constantly churn out a top 5 defense. So, with the Bills in a miserable cap situation, difficult roster decisions are gonna have to be made here. And that may include cutting the 2-time Pro Bowler, as a pre-June 1st release would open up $6 million in cap space for the Bills. But if they wait until after June 1st, the Bills would clear $10 million in releasing White. And man, they need all the money they can get right about now. But what other big names do you think are likely to get cut during the 2024 NFL offseason? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, well, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.